It's hard to think about global warming when it's so cold outside. The Hudson River is all frozen over. But I was looking in the paper yesterday, the last couple of days. It actually turns out to be one of the warmest winters in a long time in the US. We just don't realize that here on the East Coast because the weather is just going different. It's very cold in the south, and it's kind of very warm. And California really hasn't caught up in the rain patterns. They're still very low on the rain. So it's not all normal, it's not all good. Many of you will remember what happened just 2 years ago here in New York. Hurricane Sandy devastated the city and much of the Northeast. It took weeks to fully restore power and pump all the water out of the subway. Still today, the tunnels between New York and New Jersey might need to be replaced, and the total cost could be as high as $50 billion when it's all said and done. The reason? Climate change. Extreme weather events like Sandy are becoming more frequent and result in more destruction. Consolidated Edison, the local utility here in New York, and a company ranked by Newsweek as one of America's greenest utilities, is implementing a $1 billion investment program designed to increase resilience to flooding and disruptions. The two other major utilities of Greater New York are engaged in similar storm hardening efforts. Same ticket size, $1 billion each. Today we're here in New York from all over the globe to discuss trends for utilities and for infrastructure generally. In Latin America and the Caribbean, we invest only 2.5% of GDP in infrastructure. Yet the region requires about 5% to stay competitive. That's an investment gap of $150 billion annually. Globally, this gap is estimated to be about $1 trillion. That's a $1 trillion business opportunity. Focusing on Latin America and the Caribbean, we have witnessed 340 extreme weather events just between 2007 and 2012. These events caused nearly 8,000 fatalities, impacted more than 37 million people, and cost economies more than $32 billion. Climate change comes at a high cost and affects women, poor, and disadvantaged people disproportionately. Climate change also impacts water. Unprecedented droughts in Brazil have forced rationing in Sao Paulo and Rio. This highlights the need for multi-billion-dollar investments in water distribution and management infrastructure. Science has proven that these changes correlate with temperature rise stemming from carbon emissions. The models urge a rapid transition to a low-carbon economy. The private sector has a big role to play in the transition. We know much of the losses are already absorbed by private markets. We also know that over 80% of the investment must come from the private sector. Rating agencies, and Norman just reminded us, have begun to build climate resilience into their criteria for both sovereigns and private entities. This morning, I'd like to focus on how smart investment decisions can deliver attractive returns through more sustainable infrastructure. The IDB's experience leads us to believe that the future of infrastructure centers around three key aspects. One, socially inclusive, low-emission and climate-resilient infrastructure. Two, efficient management of energy, water, and other natural resources. And three, systemic leadership. A few years ago, we at the IDB asked how infrastructure investment could become more environmentally and socially sustainable. We knew it would require a major departure from business as usual. Sustainable infrastructure is a climate issue, a business issue, and an equity issue. It asks new questions and involves new strategies. We found answers partnering with Harvard University and CGLA, and I'd like to thank Norman for his vision and contributions to this effort. In 2013, we launched the Infrastructure 360 Awards program. It seeks to showcase and inspire smart and visionary solutions. And I invite you to visit our information booth just outside during the coffee break. Participating projects utilize the Envision methodology developed by the Harvard Softness Program for infrastructure sustainability. It focuses on community, leadership, climate, and the environment. In late March, we will announce the 2015 winners at our annual meeting in Korea. These projects will serve as examples for the region and for the entire world. Last year, one of the winners was the Metro Lima Line 1. This urban transport system touts significant carbon emission reductions. The first electric train line in Lima will take diesel-fueled public buses and personal automobiles off the roads. It will connect 11 districts through an elevated viaduct. It will transport isolated citizens and foster social cohesion. Another example of sustainable infrastructure we're financing is the port of Manzanillo in Mexico. We coupled a market-based loan with gender and diversity training, a carbon footprint measurement tool, and a climate change adaptation plan. The goal is to decrease carbon emissions by 40%. One vision for the future comes from author and economist Jeremy Rifkin. He proposed the Internet of Things, the convergence of communication, renewable energy, and logistics technologies. By using our buildings, homes, and factories as micro-power plants, we could capture, store, and share energy. And not just any energy, but renewable energy. Rifkin predicts that the fossil fuel-driven industrial age is sunsetting, and a new generation of renewable micro-producers is emerging. Utility firms would increasingly exit power generation to focus on operating decentralized smart grids. They would be managers of an energy internet, leveraging their operational expertise and their infrastructure. We can already see this happening in Germany. Bavaria, for example, has more than 3 solar panels per resident, more installed solar capacity than the entire United States. Subsidies certainly help, but technology is central to continue the transformation. New ways to capture unused energy, store it, and share it, similar to how the internet stores and sends files digitally, will change markets. I look forward to hearing from leaders today about the latest in bidirectional transmission, large-scale battery storage, and other emerging technologies. In Central America, we support companies to assess and install self-supply renewable energy of their own. In Honduras, we recently committed to finance one of the country's largest rooftop photovoltaic projects at the Embotelladora de Sula bottling plant. Once the project is complete, solar panels will cover 34,000 square meters of rooftop, generate 3 megawatts of electricity, and supply 20% of the plant's total electricity needs. Technological advances like rooftop solar are increasingly cost competitive. Initial investment can often be recovered in 4 to 5 years, and unlike fossil fuels, the marginal costs approach zero in the long term. We have seen enormous interest in green technologies throughout Central America, which is expected to install around 550 megawatt of solar per year through 2018. So what can we do to harvest this tremendous business opportunity? To transition to a low-carbon economy, many countries have come together. Some provide funding solutions to buy down the cost of disruptive new technologies. Most funds can be accessed directly by governments or through multilaterals like the IDB. We at the IDB have leveraged these opportunities, especially to enable innovation through private sector projects. We believe that targeted, well-structured applications of these funds, which offer additional risk-taking capacity, accelerate the transition. These funds ultimately foster sustainable investments that provide affordable services. Fuel prices have been volatile, and they have always been volatile. The current cycle is no exception. Even if prices remain soft, we must continue to diversify energy matrices to reduce vulnerability and transition towards a low-carbon economy. Indonesia and India have acted on lower prices by eliminating fossil fuel subsidies. In the Caribbean, we are hopeful to substitute coal and diesel with cleaner natural gas. As the costs of renewables generally decline, countries will be less inclined to regress on their clean energy priorities and strategies. Technologies taking into account climate change while being distributive, collaborative, and peer-to-peer have the greatest potential to revolutionize how we contemplate infrastructure. Let's remember, we are looking at $150 billion a year for Latin America and the Caribbean just to remain competitive. There's an additional $35 billion a year that is estimated to be needed to improve climate resilience. However, by focusing on efficient energy and water management, there is potential to achieve a significant return. In cities in Latin America and the Caribbean, 30% of energy generated and 20% of water distributed never reach the consumer. Better city planning, smart technologies, more resilient systems, and more conscious consumption directly translates to cost savings and less waste. We offer free energy audits to our clients, and I'm always struck by how easy it is to identify savings with very small marginal incremental investment. This potential exists across all industries and countries. It requires a higher level of attention and technical know-how, and it backs a post-industrial culture that recognizes natural resources as scarce and valuable goods. This brings me to my last point, systemic leadership. Smart infrastructure and an efficient use of resources must come together systemically. Climate change is perhaps the most challenging collective action problem the world has encountered. It presents us with a textbook combination of volatility, uncertainty, and complexity. Isolated action will not be effective. We need cohesive interaction between public policies and private investment decisions. We need leadership. You are leaders in this business. You understand long-term horizons. That's a natural for the infrastructure professional. As leaders, you can steer the market through adaptive change for long-term benefits. I propose systemic leadership across the following. 1. Leadership by major infrastructure firms to drive smarter power delivery and consumption. 2. Leadership by commercial banks, institutional investors, and the insurance industry to drive capital allocation, risk mitigation, and influence private sector priorities. And 3. Leadership by entrepreneurs to drive new business model, like replacing ownership of manufactured goods with sharing services. I challenge all of you to take this $1 trillion business opportunity and lead with creativity and innovation. To take personal responsibility that makes a real difference and seek new alliances for systemic results. I challenge you to use this conference to push for smarter solutions that allow us to transition faster and at a lower cost, as sustainable infrastructure is the decade's greatest opportunity. Thank you very much.